think it's harder when it sneaks up on you than if you've lived with it all of your life. And I've talked with other people who've had lifelong disabilities too that agree with me that because we've had to adapt all of our lives, it's been easier for us to say, I can't do this anymore. It's gotten to be too much. It's too difficult. And it is really annoying when you get on a bus and there you are with your cane or your crutches and no one gets up. But I do find that I find a lot of hope in younger people because they seem to be the ones that'll jump up.
Hello, and welcome to Not Born Yesterday, a podcast dedicated to older adults and the challenges and joys of aging. I'm Miriam Goodman, your co-host. Not Born Yesterday examines the problems and solutions of growing older today. We bring you the wisdom and voices of experts in the field of aging and offer tips on how to feel your best, use your lifetime skills and experiences, and make the coming months and years as fulfilling as possible.
I'm your co-host, Lynn Winter-Gross. Not Born Yesterday is brought to you by Next Village San Francisco. Next Village San Francisco is a local nonprofit providing older adults in the Northeast neighborhood of San Francisco with support to help them age in place, as well as offering cultural, educational, and social activities that keep people connected and engaged with the community and with each other. As most of our listeners already know, aging brings change. Sometimes those changes are small, a little ache or pain in the morning, the need for a nap some afternoons, or just noticing that we can't do some things as easily as we did before. Adding to this is the fact that we all experience ageism in our interpersonal relationships. Maybe we're aging differently from our spouse or friends, and they may need to change their expectations about what we can and cannot do.
Today's guest knows all about things like mobility, exercise, adaptability, changes in diet and sleep habits, and especially physical challenges and other people's assumptions. As a polio survivor since the age of 3, Francine Falk-Allen recognized that living with a disability and now navigating as an older adult have many things in common. Francine is a retired business owner who also sings and records with various groups. She's also an activist with disability rights organizations. She recently put her thoughts and experiences into a book called No Spring Chicken, which is informational as well as inspirational regarding traveling, adapting to limitations, and participating in life. Francine, welcome to Not Born Yesterday.
Thank you.
Francine, I know you've pointed out that there are similarities between disabilities and aging, but some people are concerned about looking old and refuse to use something like a cane when they need it to get around. At Not Born Yesterday, our philosophy is do what you need to get out and be part of society. Do you have any advice for people who worry about being labeled as old?
Oh, I started using a cane when I was in my 30s. I picked one up at a flea market and I thought it was cool. I just liked the looks of it. And it was a very neat old cane. It was an old English cane with a bone handle. And I also had some hesitancy when I used to go to tax seminars. I was a tax accountant for many years, and I'd go to these big resorts and a lot of people would be using scooters to get from one place to another. And I thought, well, that's for old lazy people or fat people or whatever, but it was exhausting. So finally I took the message and I really embraced using a scooter, and I eventually bought one. I have a little folding one, and honestly, I don't care anymore what it looks like. It's smart. I can use a scooter to get several blocks or a mile or whatever, and then get off and walk around and do what I want to do and then get back on it. I see people who should be using a cane, and I think, it'd be a lot easier on your back if you were actually using a cane. I can see that you're having difficulty with your hip or your back or whatever it is. So I think it's important to embrace them. Assistive devices give us the ability to get out into the world better than we can without them a lot of times, and often to relieve stress on our joints and our back.
So you talk about getting out and about, and I know you encourage people to do that, but sometimes your caregiver, your partner, your friend thinks they know better for you. They know what you should be doing, and they like to give you advice. How do you react to that?
Oh, that's a difficulty. My husband knows I'm headstrong, so he doesn't really fight me too much about what I want to do, but sometimes they'll say, you shouldn't do that or whatever. And I'll say, well, it's my body and I need to make that choice. I do have some sections in my book that assist people who are living with people who are aging or have a physical disability or a mobility problem in how to speak with them. It's much better to say, would you like a hand, than don't do that. You should have asked me. That's really not the way to talk to a person with a mobility problem. So it's a matter of communication.
So now that you have your assisted devices, I know it never stopped you before from traveling, but now I think you're traveling as well. And there are limitations. And I loved your advice about making sure your hotel has an elevator or requesting a room that's not too far down the hall. How do you deal with obstacles and things like that when you're traveling?
I do research out front mostly. I make sure that the place that we're staying has an elevator, particularly with bed and breakfast places. You have to check if you really want to stay in a place. If you have a walking problem, you have to check and see if they have a downstairs room, because a lot of bed and breakfasts do not. Some of them do. And if they don't, probably best to find a different place. I also check in advance to see if there's going to be a place to eat that's nearby, because I don't want to have to go 2 blocks to have breakfast. That's too far for me. I can do it, but it's more of a hassle. So I look for places that have a restaurant on site or next door or four doors away. So advanced planning is really important.
Yeah, I was especially interested in the fact that you said, be sure you have enough money because you're going to be taking taxis more than you might have when you were younger. You have other things that besides money and elevators and close by restaurants, because I think a lot of our listeners are really getting ready to travel.
Well, I just think it's really important to do your research in advance. If there's something you really want to see, we go to gardens, and sometimes Richard has to lift the scooter up for me over curbs, or we'll get to a place where it's gravelly and I have to get up and walk a little ways. But if you have always wanted to go to someplace like Positano, Italy, I would say change your expectations because there are lots and lots and lots of stairs. It's not going to be that much fun. And the point of a vacation is to have fun. I feel like, as far as the money aspect goes, it's better to go someplace once a year and have a really great time than do lots of traveling and have it be difficult. So, it costs money to travel. That's the truth of it. I mean, you can do things like going camping. There are national parks that have excellent sites that cater to people with disabilities. So that's another option if you want to make the effort to do that. But again, there's physical effort involved in camping, that's for sure.
I want to change the subject a little bit to doctors. In a previous podcast, we've talked about spending time with a doctor who can spend time with you, that doctors have a lot of questions. Sometimes they don't spend enough time with us to talk about aging and questions about aging and how your body has changed. Do you have specific advice about how to deal with medical personnel around these issues?
I find that if I go into a doctor's office, particularly a new doctor, with a list of questions, the meeting goes much more efficiently, and the doctor really appreciates that. But I also say that if a doctor dismisses you, if they say, well, that's not really relevant, then that's not the right doctor for you. You need to keep doing your research and find another one. And a lot of times doctors are the best allies in terms of finding a doctor that's specific to your needs. So asking your primary care doctor, if you have a good relationship with that person, who's a doctor that handles heart disease? Who's a doctor that does orthopedics? Who would you recommend? And I also ask friends who they've been to. Friends are not always the best resource, because I have girlfriends who will say, I really like this doctor. He's so cute and he's so friendly. Well, that's nice, but you want someone who's an expert.
Another subject, I wanted to know if you had any advice for family members and caregivers who really want to support the aging or the disabled person and just don't even know where to begin.
Well, I think the first thing is to ask them what they need. ask them what they want, ask them how they're doing. And sometimes you have to kind of edge into that because people don't want to complain and they don't want to ask for help. Asking for help is something that indicates, a need, and people like to feel independent. With regard to adult children of older people, I think it's important to have early trust established. Sometimes later in life, people are going to need to move out of their homes, and that's a really difficult thing to face. So if there's trust established, such as, people don't want their children to start taking over their checkbook for sure, but if a son or a daughter comes in and says, I could set this up on QuickBooks for you and it'd be faster for you to pay your bills. And if they're willing to do that, then that's a kind of a little easy foot in the door. It feels like something helpful. And then the parents are going to feel more trusting when they find that you're not trying to take over their whole life.
It's interesting as an older adult how hard it is for me to ask for help. I'm in a painting class, and when I have to move the very heavy materials around, it's like I always want to say, can you help me? This is really heavy, versus saying, no, I don't want to ask for help. I don't want to be looked at as an older person. It's always and the same thing getting on a bus. And somebody says, I want to say to somebody younger, I need that seat, versus saying, no, I don't need that seat. It's very hard for my own mental health to figure out when to ask for help.
I think it's harder when it sneaks up on you than if you've lived with it all of your life. And I've talked with other people who've had lifelong disabilities too, that agree with me that because we've had to adapt all of our lives, it's been easier for us to say, I can't do this anymore. It's gotten to be too much. It's too difficult. And it is really annoying when you get on a bus and there you are with your cane or your crutches and no one gets up. But I do find that I find a lot of hope in younger people because they seem to be the ones that'll jump up. You do have to learn to just say, I can't do this. I remember when I started asking at the grocery store for someone to help carry my groceries out, because it got to be that 10 pounds was kind of heavy for me. So now I just say, I'm going to need help out, just like that. And they bring somebody, they have people for that.
Well, thank you so much, Francine. We really appreciate your time and your explanation. And I'm sure our listeners are getting a lot of good information here. So thanks so much for being on Not Born Yesterday. That was Francine Falk-Allen, author of No Spring Chicken. Francine just talked to us about some of the possible limitations we might face when we start traveling again, but we hope that won't stop you. We have waited a long time to get out there, and now, if you're vaccinated and feeling well, it's time to see the world. With a little planning, senior travel can be great for your physical, emotional, and mental health. If you're new to travel, choose a destination that will be easy to navigate, or consider a group trip. The whole world is opening up, and it won't be hard to find a travel situation that meets your goals. Here to talk about traveling today is Sandra Lipkowitz. Sandra has won many awards in the travel industry, and her company, We Make Travel Easy, can suggest the right type of trip for you. Sandra, welcome to Not Born Yesterday.
Thank you, Miriam and Lynn. I'm very happy to be here and talk to your listeners.
We know that travel for seniors has a lot of good and bad things in people's minds. They think about, I'm going to be with seniors. I'm going to have to slow down so much. I'm going to have to wait for the slowest person. But we also know that the benefits of travel for seniors include improvements in your mental, physical, and emotional health. So if people haven't been traveling lately, but they really want to, what do you suggest for older adults for travel?
Well, older adults, just like any other age group, there are people who are in all different stages of their health and their well-being and everything else. So it's really not that different for seniors. One of the things that I like a lot, which I think works really, really well for that demographic, which I am myself, is river cruising. Because river cruising, it's all inclusive. So everything is there. You don't have to worry about things. Your hotel travels with you. And the rivers were the highways of Europe before we had cars. So these boats, ships go into the little town and villages. So it's like being on a land trip, but your hotel goes with you. And one of the lovely things about it is that when you do the excursions, they're small groups, and they're also often separated into active walkers, average walkers, slow walkers. So people can choose to be in, whatever their mobility issues are, and they don't have to feel like they're holding the rest of the group back, or if they're in better condition, that they're being held back by someone who is. So it offers a lot of flexibility. I mean, if there are any dietary needs, the chef on the ship is going to take care of it. You don't have to worry you're going to a restaurant and is not going to be able to know what to take care of for you. So, there's everything available for you, taken care of, and you can be independent if you don't want to go on a trip. An excursion for the day, you can end up just having a leisurely morning on board. You can walk off the ship and do what you want. It's not like an ocean cruise where you're in an industrial area. You just walk off and you're in a little town. Or if you're a more active senior and you like to bike ride, they have bikes on the ships. So it gives you a lot of flexibility and takes care of the things that are more uncomfortable. How do I get from here to there? How do I do that? Oh, I've got to carry my suitcases. I've got to, check out of this hotel room by a certain time. I've got to get a train to get from here to there. You don't have to worry about that. It's really lovely.
That sounds perfect. It never even occurred to me to go on a river cruise. And you're right, not having to pack and unpack and worry about the hotel sounds really great.
Is that different than the big cruise ships?
Oh, way different. A river cruise ship is about 160 passengers versus thousands on ocean cruises. And also, as I said, the rivers of Europe were the highways. So these ships go into the little towns. I mean, literally little towns. They also go into Vienna and they also go into Antwerp. But when you walk off the ship in Antwerp, you're in Antwerp. You're not in the port somewhere with all the industrial ships. And now you got to find a bus or a taxi and get you somewhere. I mean, it's totally different. It's really like a land tour, but your hotel is moving with you and you're going to all these charming little villages all through Europe on the rivers.
Before we leave river cruises, are there river cruises in the United States as well?
Yes, there are. There's the American Steamship Queen cruise line, and they do wonderful on the Mississippi. They also do on the Columbia and the Pacific Northwest. So they have fabulous river cruise itineraries. And there's also, I wouldn't quite call it river cruising, but there's small ship cruising in Alaska under, 100 passengers or less. And so you don't have to go on one of these 2,000 or 3,000 passenger ships.
Sandy, you've given us so much information. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for being on our podcast. That was Sandra Lipkowitz of WeMakeTravelEasy.com.
As we say in our introduction to each episode, our podcast, Not Born Yesterday, is brought to you by Next Village SF. Next Village SF is part of the National Villages Movement, an innovative grassroots movement that coordinates critical services for older adults who want to stay in their own homes as they age. The Village Movement began more than 20 years ago in 1999. A group of neighbors and friends in the Beacon Hill neighborhood of Boston spent almost 2 years creating a movement for older adults where they could get together and would not feel isolated or patronized. They could help each other access community services, socialize and learn together, and feel confident that they could take care of themselves in their own homes, even as they aged.
Now, 20 plus years later, there are more than 230 villages and communities throughout the country. Each is different in some ways, but most offer events from nature walks, photography contests, bocce ball, poetry writing, foreign language classes, lectures and workshops on medical and social issues, and shared holiday celebrations, and much more. Frequently, volunteers of all ages provide services from food delivery, transportation, to tech help and non-medical household tasks. As a member of Next Villages SF, the social interaction is the reason I originally joined. Whether it's a meal delivery service, help with my new laptop, a get-together at a local restaurant, social dancing with other members at a neighborhood club, or discussing a new book, the villages are a great way to make new friends and stay connected. If you are living in a community without a village chapter, you can start one. If there already is one in your community, check it out. That's our podcast for today. Our thanks to Francine Falk-Allen and Sandra Lipkowitz. Our theme music is from Hook Sounds. You can learn more about Next Village SF by going to their website, www.nextvillagesf.org.
And thanks to you for listening. We would love to hear what you want us to discover and discuss. Please contact us at notbornyesterday@nextvillagesf.org.
Be well, stay strong, and remember, you weren't born yesterday. I'm Lynn Winter Gross.
And I'm Miriam Goodman.